Hello, hello. Welcome to the podcast. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. This
Good.
has been a good recording
Yeah.
so far for us this time around. So I'm just going to jump right in and introduce our next guest this week. Today we have Cynthia James. Welcome to the podcast, Cynthia. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Before we get started and dive into our conversation, tell our listeners a little bit about the work you do.
I'm an author and a speaker, an emotional integration leadership coach. I work with leaders and small to mid-sized companies, helping them learn to manage stress by manage their emotional states. And I've written 5 books, and I'm also a singer and a composer, and I've recorded 5 albums and several meditation CDs.
Okay. We missed some stuff in the
Yeah,
bio.
yeah. I love that.
awesome.
That's so
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, we're excited to connect with you and just, learn from you and have a great conversation. So we'll jump in and ask the big question, which is, what is a belief you once had that you no longer have that has impacted your life in a meaningful way?
I would say the thing that the belief that was the undergirding of everything was that I wasn't safe. And if I wasn't safe, then it wasn't okay to be me. It wasn't okay to be authentic because there could be hurt or punishment. And, part of that came from, my childhood that, my father was an alcoholic, my stepfather was a pedophile and a wife beater, and my whole family, 5 generations of women who'd been abused and traumatized. So it was in my DNA.
Wow.
And so to be able to begin to understand that I lived in a safe universe and that it was okay to be myself was quite a journey.
Yeah. Whoa. Okay. That is a huge shift.
Yeah.
And, every time we ask this question, most of the time people come back and say, this is where it started. So, yeah, maybe help us unpack it a little bit more in terms of how that upbringing impacted your life before the shift and what has come on the other side of that shift.
Well, people who know me today would not believe that as a child I was very shy. And I think a part of it was keeping my head down so that
Right.
I didn't get hurt. And so the weird thing is that I'm an expressive. So I was having this really interesting dichotomy. One moment I was like hiding, and the next moment I was singing and making up songs and dancing and dressing up and doing all that kind of stuff. And so I was confused. So I know everybody else was confused too. So, but it was when I got to school, I discovered that I had an intelligence. I mean, I could remember things quickly. And I also thought, well, if I can do well in school, then there's the possibility of me getting out of this environment that I'm in. And then that led me to being involved. So I was a cheerleader and I was a young model and I was on the debate club and the chess club because it kept me out of the house, but
Yeah.
it also allowed me to be interacting with people in a way where I didn't feel less than.
I can that's a lot. And I can totally relate to this idea of like keeping yourself busy, keeping yourself it was like safe, right? It was like out of the house, out of the direct, danger. And I think I really appreciate your belief, that transition. But I think the reality is too, it's like there were times when your physical safety wasn't for sure.
Right.
So it makes sense that was your belief. That was a belief that was definitely and very clearly as a child reinforced for you because of what you saw growing up. So, I'm sorry that you had that experience, and I'm glad that you were able to get to the other side of that and now know that safety does exist. And I think as adults, and maybe you can speak to this, I think the challenge then becomes in creating that safety and that safe space that we always wanted and never had, or maybe don't even know what it's supposed to look like, right? It sounds like you gave yourself so many experiences outside of your home that you were able to grasp at what safety might feel like and look like. But how did that, how did you do the work of even creating safety after growing up in a space and in a way where that wasn't very accessible to you?
Well, it was a journey. I will say that. I'm a seeker and I'm an explorer. So I did a lot of things in my life. I moved to New York. I was an airline hostess. I mean, I was doing all kinds of things, and I was not making great choices all the time. But what I will tell you in retrospect is it was very clear to me that I had guardian angels that were walking with me because I could have been in some deep trouble because I wasn't smart enough to understand what the world was truly like. But I think the turning point was me. I come from a line of prophetic dreamers and people who are really connected spiritually. And even though I was having a challenge with traditional religion, I was very clear about connection to the divine, to the
Right.
universe. And I was very clear that I had intuition. And so I began to explore, how do I nurture that? How do I uplift it? And so that led to, going to school and a master's in spiritual psychology, and taking different classes and workshops that would give me the tools to change my neural paths.
That's good. And I feel like that, when did you do that? When did you go to school and when did you sort of start that journey and that process?
It was in the last 25 years,
Okay.
and
But I still think that's very new for people. Like this whole idea, like just thinking about nervous system regulation, changing neural paths. Like these are not conversations I was having growing up by any means.
No.
So I love that.
Yeah, so like what are some of the things, like how do you go from I don't feel safe to like, I mean, maybe we can just take a little bit of a deeper dive in how, like, what does it feel like how do you feel safety today? I mean, clearly your circumstances are different, but I think that the body keeps memory of all those things. And so like how have you really like have you gotten to a space, or is this something that you do notice you have to revisit a lot?
not anymore. I had a miraculous experience. My husband and I love to go to movies for dates. And we drove in separate cars, and I was walking to my car and he had gone the other direction to his car. And as I'm walking to my car, it's dark, and I realize I'm in this parking lot, and this fear came up. I mean, it was huge. And I'm trying to manage this terror, and somebody walks up that I knew and starts talking to me. Now, I don't remember who it was, and I don't remember what they were saying because I was in that internal process of, oh my gosh, I'm going to get to the car, and what if I'm not safe, right? And so the person's walking, and we get to the garage, and I go, I'm in the garage, and the person says, oh, me too. And so I said, oh, I got to go up the stairs, and the person says, me too. Well, the person was parked next to me. And in that moment, I heard a little voice say, you are safe. I always take care of you. And I just started sobbing. The person probably thought I was completely crazy. But I started doing the affirmation, I live in a safe universe. And even though it was still scary to walk into dark rooms, or, I would get jumpy, eventually that affirmation began to take hold. And I began to feel stronger in my presence on the planet.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I truly believe in the power of affirmations, and, you know, someone else can say it, right? Someone else can think it or believe it, but until you take hold of that thing within you and it's something that you repeat or write or, just engage with on a regular basis, I don't think that it can be as impactful. So is affirmation work? I know you do a lot of leadership training. Is affirmational work a part of that training, or how do you utilize affirmations in the work that you do with professionals, with leaders, with other people?
Yeah, I use affirmations a lot because really, it's affirming something that may not be even happening in the moment. but
Right.
you're affirming the possibility of it. And I feel that we live in a field of potentiality and possibility. And so affirmations activate that field. And so that's what I talk about with leaders. And I also tell them that going back to the neural path, if you've got a belief system or patterns that are running, you can shift those and change the chemicals in your body by bringing those affirmations in and using them consistently when the other part wants to take over. Eventually
Right.
it becomes larger than those fear experiences or beliefs.
So I think so right off the bat, my you know, I don't know what I'm going to call this part of me wants to go, but how do I know if I'm ignoring real threat?
Yeah.
I like the way you say that.
Yeah. I don't know what part of me it is, but how do I know that I am not ignoring real threat and I'm not just like being like what's that term, like toxic positivity?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
how do I know that this is coming from intuition and knowing versus I'm just going to say my affirmation and like someone's like going to like attack me? Like how do you know the difference?
Mind body connection. I believe the body has a language. We're not taught it because it's not part of curriculum when you go to school. But if you think about your life, you've had a moment where some part of your throat got tight or your stomach got tight just before something was going to happen. That to me is when my body, I'm so attuned to it now, and it's what I teach my leaders. If you attune to your body, you actually know the difference between real threat and imagined fantasy that's based on old beliefs and old familial patterns. And so it takes practice. But for me, I mean, when I'm about to make a decision, if my solar plexus, my stomach is closed, it's a not now. Don't move until it's clear. And so, and the same with my throat. If my throat is tight or my jaws are tight, then I know there's something I'm not saying, and I need to get clear within myself of why am I afraid to speak my truth? Why am I afraid to bring my voice forward?
Yeah, I've been doing a little bit of this with I've been doing a reframe. So sometimes I'll find certain areas, even in work, where I feel resistance and like I'm calling myself lazy or I'm procrastinating. And then lately I've been going, or maybe that's not the work you should be doing. And
Yes.
then just evaluating that a little bit to see, like, why am I resistant? And not instantly jumping to the inner critic that tells me I'm not good enough, but saying, okay, if there were no rules, would you want to do it this way? Would you want to do this?
Right.
And like trying to release the barriers that keep me thinking that I have to do it that way because this is the way the rules go, and if I don't do it then I'm lazy and I'm procrastinating. Is that kind of what you're talking about, like using those cues from
Yeah.
the body?
Yeah, because here's the thing, the intuition is not linear. Everybody else is saying go right, and the intuition will be go, no, you need to go left.
Yeah.
And so learning to understand that when you can listen to that still small voice, when you can listen to that part of you that's guiding you. I remember I was in a job and I kept hearing in my meditation, it's time to leave. And I'm like, and do what? So
Give me
I
the
have no
roadmap.
job. And it was like pushing me. And so I said, okay, I either trust this stuff or I don't.
All right, don't.
And in my meditation, it said, get an office. And I'm like, I don't have any clients. I don't have a business. And it kept saying, get an office. And so two other people that I knew were getting an office. And so we rented this office together and I decorated it and I'd go in there and I'd meditate. And this was what was fascinating. Literally, people started coming to me and I wasn't marketing. And within a 6 month period of time, I was making my salary back. And I cannot tell you logically how that happened, but that voice was like, this is what you are to do now. And I've learned to trust it.
Yeah. Okay. Something big just happened for me in this moment. because I saw my therapist last week, and I told her, like, I'm here and I want to, I hadn't seen her in a little while. And she's like, oh, I'm so curious to see you back. Like, what's going on? And I said, I want to work on self-trust more. And she said, really? You have really good intuition. Why do you want to work on that? And I'm realizing in this moment, I don't want to work on self-trust. I want to work on my tolerance for rejection of other people's opinion of that self-trust.
100%. Listen, the majority of people on this planet do not understand intuitive knowing and guidance. And so you're going, yes, I'm going to go over here. And they're like, have you lost your mind? Are you crazy? You're going to give up this? And so I think that it's a combination of following that inner knowing, but also trusting that you're okay and that you can trust it, because there's no real mistakes. There are challenges that can happen and there are consequences, but you're not going to make a mistake if you move forward in the direction of your dreams.
I love that paradigm shift. There's no real mistakes, because if you are in tuned, and Katie, I think you really are. If you are in tune with what you know you need and what you know you are put on this planet to do, and you're given these downloads and these ideas, this stuff that just comes to your mind in the shower or when you're finally like taking a break, there's no, you can't make a mistake.
I just want the intuition to align with society says, so
I
that
don't
way I don't
think
have
it
to face
will.
resistance.
Well, but you know what? I really want you to think about the times that we're living in now and things that we're seeing on this planet that 3 weeks ago weren't happening. How did that happen? And how did certain people decide to follow this guidance and take a leap? With everybody around them going, "You're crazy, don't do this." You know what I mean? I just feel like if you're here on this planet to do something nobody else can do because you're a new unique expression, then not everybody's gonna get it. But
But I
if
think
you,
where I get stuck, and help me through this, Cynthia, is because then I go, what do you think? Like, you're better than everyone, and it's like, oh, your nice ego coming in, like you just are gonna do it your way, and like people are gonna warn you, and then you're not. It's like, do you see what it's like the battle?
Yeah.
It's like the knowing and then the battle.
yeah, but here's the thing: the ego is about separation. It's about what's wrong. The intuition and the guidance is about what's right, what's going to expand you, what's going to move you to the next level. And the ego, dances and probably dates the inner critic, and they just have a little field day over there about what's wrong.
They are best friends. That makes so much
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but your whole being knows the truth. It will be open. And it will not necessarily make sense to the linear world, but your body and your mind and your whole being open says there's a portal for you to step through.
I mean, I feel it. I do know what the feeling is.
Yeah.
I just get lost in the I'm going to use air quotes, logic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I do, and I do feel it. And I get lost in how it all, I try to then use my thinking mind and my inner critic, and then it's like they're all, like you said, they're having a nice little field day with my cues. And it gets all jumbled. But I do think that, like, the more we do this inner work and create the safety to have the authentic expression, like the more repetitions we have of that, I will say it's easier for me now than it was even 6 months ago.
Yeah.
To have a line, and part of it is me trusting, because I do think that trust is scary to say, like, okay, I'm going to trust something that other people are reflecting back to me. That's not logical. That's hard, and
Right.
I don't want to be the person who, like, I'm the one who knows. Like, I don't want that position either. I'm just like trying to bring it out, and then I don't know. Trusting it's hard.
Yeah, but you know what? You are the one who knows for you.
You are. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
You
It's not
are.
like you're trying to set a rule for the world. This is about you and the things that you want to bring forth
Yeah.
and create and produce. That's very different.
And you can trust your heart. You know, heart math talks about the fact that the heart is intelligent. And when things are in alignment, it's open. And when things are not, it will close.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like even working with you, Lisa, there's been no resistance.
Right, right.
It's just flow, 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 flow. You know? Yeah. So it's like good repetitions of knowing what that feels like and allowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel urged to ask you this. Lisa and I are about the same age in a very similar season of our life with children and businesses and taking our authentic power back. And I'd love to know, like, what you would say to your former self, to your former 40-year-old self. What do you wish she knew?
Well, I'm 75, so I have a lot to say to her.
Oh,
Tell us.
listen, we are all ears.
I would say, listen, you're here for a reason. You have an appointment, a divine appointment on this planet that nobody else can fulfill. And those gifts that you have been given, nobody else can use them the way you use them. So you can trust. Oh, and by the way, the universe has your back. It's going to move you. It's going to guide you. It's going to support you. It's going to lift you. And even if you think you're taking a wrong turn, there will be a reason and another door will open. The world is here for you, and you will be on this planet until you have completed your purpose, which is encoded within you.
That feels so good.
I like the no mistakes. Like, it's just a redirection almost.
Just a
There's just no
100%.
mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that wisdom. I really appreciate that. It's funny. I came across, I feel like, I don't know where, maybe I found you on TikTok. Are you on TikTok?
I am.
Yeah. And I remember not even really exploring your page, just feeling your energy.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't know what it is about this. I don't even know the work she does. In fact, I think I sent Anna, who coordinates our podcast, maybe make sure there's brand alignment here with WeShape, but I just want to talk to this woman. Like, don't book her if we don't have, like, brand alignment, because I want to have, like, some brand alignment. But I just feel like I need to talk to this woman for some reason. And then, yeah. So thank you so much for that. I mean, it's so simple. I think we just want to overcomplicate. I feel like we should just really leave it at that, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just, there are no mistakes.
There are no mistakes. That might be the title for this episode. There are no mistakes. But you know what? Being able to accept that is, as Katie said, we have a lot of similarities, but just being like these very type A, super efficient, very organized, somewhat controlling. Like, I can admit that. And I know
All of them that, yeah.
It's really hard. It seems so much against our nature, my nature, to just say, all right, I'm going to put my best foot forward, do what I can do, and then just sit back and let the rest manifest and be, and not get so caught up in, like you said, oh, I made the wrong turn. Oh, that was a mistake. Oh, bad choice. Oh, versus just like knowing these are all parts of the puzzle. And even when it feels like a mistake or something really bad or it goes wrong, there's learning to be done in that. And there's benefit, like it benefits the whole picture, the whole story. So I struggle with it still at 42 years old, but I think we're all getting a little better at it. I guess the longer we live.
I think about it too sometimes, like I'm finished, like the book has been written.
Right.
And I look back and on chapter 10, I'm like, huge mistake. But at chapter 20, I'm like, oh, that happened because of this.
Because of that.
It's like part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and who you are today is benefiting others who are coming along behind you
Right.
because of the lessons that you've learned. I mean, it's you're what you are living, this life that you are living is such a beautiful masterpiece in the making. And a masterpiece doesn't get painted or sculpted in a day. It's over time. And so that's what you're doing. And this is what I want to tell you about type A, because I'm definitely one of those personalities. But what has happened to me a while ago, probably about 8 years ago, I had an issue where my adrenals were like going crazy, and my doctor was like, "Listen, if you don't slow down, you're going to be on medications forever because you're headed towards this thing called Addison's disease." And so I took a sabbatical, and in that sabbatical, I literally looked at, why am I moving in this direction? Part of it is purpose. Part of it is I've come here to fulfill certain things. But the other part for me was, it was how I got validation in the world. It's how I got love in the world. The more I could accomplish and the more people knew I could do, then, the more important I was going to be and the more validated. And then, but this is what I realized. So I was about 30 pounds heavier than I am now. I was going down the path of the women in my family, all of them left overweight, ill, depressed, and not feeling fulfilled. And so, that child in me said, I'll be fulfilled. I'm going to do all this stuff. But in the meantime, I'm eating my stress. I'm not sleeping well. I'm not exercising, all that stuff. And so I said to the universe, okay, what's the harmonic convergence here? How do I do the things that nurture my body, nurture my mind and my spirit, and at the same time accomplish all of these visions and dreams that want to come through me? And so it was a little bit of a journey, but today I have an hour spiritual practice that's a non-negotiable. Even if I have to get up an hour and a half earlier from what I'm going to be doing, that happens because I know, and I exercise, 3-4 times a week, and I eat, much healthier than I did, except for popcorn, because I love popcorn.
Love popcorn, eat popcorn. Yeah, we're very, I think that's beautiful. We talk about coming into alignment with, who we are, who we want to be, and doing the things to take better care of ourselves. And, I just always like to reiterate, that will look different for everyone. We do a lot of work in the We Shape community with helping people like break up with the toxicity and diet culture and fitness culture and weight loss culture that tells you you're supposed to look a certain way and do a certain thing, and really focusing on the things that actually matter. And for some people, that is going to result in having spiritual practices that we set boundaries around, that's important, making sure we go to sleep, setting alarms and reminders because we're nourishing ourselves, making sure we have as much access as possible to a variety of foods, and we're loving on ourselves and treating ourselves well. And for some people that manifests as weight loss, for some people that manifests as weight gain, for a lot of people that manifests as improving strength. You might have clearer skin all of a sudden, but it's not about the aesthetic of it all. It's about what you're pouring into yourself spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and then the things you're doing for yourself physically that show up differently. And so now you can see the change, like, oh, I feel more fulfilled, I feel more satisfied, I feel more at peace with who I am. And I mean, it's beautiful to get into that space, but it feels so far off when you feel like you're missing the keys and the pieces and the steps, right? Because it's not like it looks different for everyone.
Because our culture tells us that it's what I call toxic wellness culture.
Yes.
That tells us that alignment with who you are means you're skinny, you don't age,
right?
You look this way, right? And like Lisa said, when I changed my relationship with food, I actually gained weight. And that was getting in alignment.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so it's about knowing who you are, and then knowing what feels good for you, and then not defining it by what has been projected onto you by toxic culture and society. Yeah. And so some people like myself,
but it's in alignment with what you value.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. Very true.
And like some people, like my partner, he must move his body every day to feel alignment with himself. I might need to rest every day and move a couple times a week. And then seasons shift, right? So it's about creating that permission to not have a rule book, but to look within and know that just because somebody appears thin on social media and appears to be successful and appears to have these things, they might be completely out of alignment and not living their quote unquote best life. So yeah, it's a complicated, it's like this, I think Lisa is saying that because a lot of the work we do here, we want to make sure that when people are recovering in our community
Yes.
from weight loss, the pattern, the obsession. And so we really want to make sure that people understand that some people's journey with getting alignment results in weight loss. Some of it results in weight gain, and it's irrelevant. It's about that journey where we get off of the obsessive cycle
Right.
of expectations and projections. So I think that's why Lisa was just really wanting to say that, because a lot of our listeners might be recovering and they're like, oh, well, if I just do what Cynthia says, then finally I'll be skinny. And I'm like,
Oh,
oh, no,
no,
we're not
no.
trying to get skinny over here.
No, totally not.
Yeah.
And the thing for me was I wasn't trying to lose weight. What I was
Right.
trying to do is move into a place where I was balanced and not working myself to death. And
Yes.
out of that,
And that's what I want our
came
listeners to take away.
different-
I know
yeah.
that's what you meant. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that's
Yeah.
what you meant.
It's important.
I think
Listen,
that in
I mean,
toxic, yeah.
There's
ahead.
no, I mean, I used to, be an actress, and, Hollywood is notorious for people doing crazy stuff to look right for a camera. Totally out of
Right.
alignment, totally out of sync. And what I say is that if you can bring your best self, your healthiest self forward, whatever that looks like, then you're on the right path. You're on the right trajectory for your well-being.
Yep. No matter what other people say or what Hollywood
Yeah.
suggests, and that's
Yeah.
important. Sitting in your power and in your truth, and knowing what's ultimately best for you.
And what
So,
will be yours will likely not be someone else's, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, they're all like nuanced, complicated. It's like it's not complicated when we talk about what you're saying outside of toxic wellness culture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And a lot of us are in recovery from toxic wellness culture because we're all like, well, maybe it's not true that I can find happiness without being thin. And so we're like waiting for that thing to tell us, no, go back to that diet because then you'll be happy. It's like we're all kind of, is it true I can be happy without the diet?
Right. Yeah. It's just it's a process of unlearning and then relearning. And really, I think kind of the basis of what you've been talking about today is connecting with yourself and listening to that voice that we are so used to like
Ignoring.
stifling and ignoring and shutting up and taking everybody else's opinion instead of our own and what we know, and then not being in connection with, I know everyone has different, and you alluded to this, different religious and spiritual beliefs, but if you have some knowing that there is something greater than yourself, then making it a point to be in connection with that source, with the universe, with God, whatever you call it. It, for me personally, it changes everything. And I'm not a very religious person anymore. I don't, I was raised Christian. I did the church thing, but gaining my own spiritual practices, meditating on a regular basis, really stopping and listening, tuning into my body and listening to that voice, it makes a huge difference in the decisions you make and the way you respond to disappointment, to rejection, to stress, as opposed to just like, throwing in the towel and thinking you don't know anything and you're a failure. It's like, no, I know this was a part of the journey, and now I can pick up the pieces from here and move on and keep working on this very beautiful masterpiece, that's coming together. So,
And I've heard a lot too, like sometimes we don't hear the message.
yeah.
And it's not a message of, I don't think of like you're wrong, like you're saying something like no mistakes. It's okay, we're ready to go left, and then our will and our ego and our things come in and go, I'm going right. And then the universe goes, okay, well, we'll just have this other thing that helps you go left. And then you're like, I'm going right. And it's like, okay, well, here's one more thing to help you go left. I'm going right, until we really surrender. But it's a lot of trust. It's a lot of surrender. It's a lot of connecting with that idea, like we were talking about before, that I am a spiritual being having a physical bodied experience, not a human being, physical body having a spiritual experience. And like connecting with that, because everything outside of us in our modern world, most of those things don't direct us back to that place. And so it's like, trust what you don't know.
That part.
That's
Yeah,
hard work.
And choose you.
Yeah.
Choose you. What's going to be right for you, for your health, for your well-being, for your joy, for your freedom. Especially women. We were considered property until the early 1900s, and we were
Yep.
told that our job was to take care of everybody else first and then get to us. And I think it's
Yep.
backwards. I say if we choose ourselves first, then we get to those places and we raise the vibration and the frequency of everything and everyone around us.
And we're just one perception shift away. Like, even the other day, my kids wanted to go to the movies. My husband and I took them, and I was on my period, and I was not feeling well. My body was saying, we do not want to be here. And in the middle of the movie, I said, I'm going to go home and meet you guys at the house. And on the way home, I was like, oh, you just gave up on your quality time with the kid. I went through the whole guilt. And then I said, you can continue on the path of guilt, or you can reframe it and say, your two daughters just got to have a mom. Show them what it looks like to care for themselves in a really important time of the month. Which one causes you less suffering? And I just let it go. And then when they came home, I was in a bath. And they walked in. I said, how was the movie? They said, great. I said, thank you for understanding that during my period, my body was asking for care, and I appreciate your support. And they said, no problem. Thanks, Mom. And they moved on with the day.
Lives not negatively affected at all.
And it was just that
100%.
little shift. It was like my body was asking for it, but my brain and my inner critic wanted to talk me out of it and give me all the reasons why I shouldn't. And that body is powerful. I do think we've learned a lot about this over the last couple episodes, even just like how powerful the body's messages are.
Absolutely. Well, I love it. Plus, your daughters got to have some unexpected time with their dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're here for that.
Always here for that.
Well, Cynthia, such a pleasure to connect with you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your wisdom, and let our listeners know where they can find you.
Go to cynthiajames.net. There's actually a free ebook there on finding your voice and what the barriers are to bringing your voice to the planet. So anybody can get that. And I'm grateful to have been with you. You're both quite beautiful.
Oh,
Thank you so much,
I feel
Cynthia.
the same. I just want to say before we wrap, to me, having these discussions with someone with your wisdom and who's been here longer than we have, but has still, it just makes me feel like I'm going in the right direction, because I think some of the things that have, at least in my life, had me so stuck were the things that I did learn from the people before me that seemed like, okay, this is how you got to do it. It's got to be rigid and structured, and you got to go to church, and you have to be very specific in your way of living in life. So to hear this from you, someone who's been here longer and has that wisdom and that seasoning, if you will, it just feels very affirming. And so I'm really grateful for the work that you're doing and the messages that you're putting out to the world. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Much love, and I will definitely tell my community as soon as you let me know it's airing.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you again, and thank you to our listeners. We'll see you next week.